Welcome to my channel Mechanical Engineering Made Simple. So I have given you one paper in which we have started discussing the questions for the thermal engineering involving thermodynamics and heat engines, right. So I have given there 25 questions. So in this video what I am doing is I am giving the answers for those 25 questions. So please be ready with those 25 questions, and if you are getting any doubt, please go back to the video and pause it and see the question and understand it. Okay, then you can follow the whatever we are discussing. That is the solution which I am giving here. The first question says that air enters an adiabatic nozzle steadily at 300 kilopascals at 200 degrees centigrade and 50 meters per second and leaves the nozzle at 100 kilopascals and 250 meters per second. If the inlet area of the nozzle is 80 centimeters square, the exit area of the nozzle is. So here 4 options are given. Which is the correct answer? Let us see. So for the nozzle we are applying the steady flow energy equation, which says that H1 plus V1 square by 2000 is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2000. Why you have to write 2000 here instead of 2? So because H is in kilojoules per kg. This equation is valid for unit mass flow rate. So writing for H1 CPT1 and H2 CPT2 and substituting the value Cp value, we know that it is 1.005 kilojoules per kg Kelvin, and velocities are given, V1 and V2 are given. So what I am doing, so after substituting I am getting the temperature T2, so which is I am getting in Kelvin as 170 plus 273, that is 443 Kelvin. So now after doing this I am going for finding out the specific volume from the equation. P1 V1 is equal to RT1 and V1 is equal to RT1 by P1. Substituting in appropriate units, because R is equal to 0.287 kilojoules per kg Kelvin, and you should take the pressure in kilopascals. It is already given in kilopascals, so there is no problem. So 300 kilopascals is given. So substituting that I will get V1 is equal to 0.4525 meter cube per kg, and similarly already I got T2, so I will get V2 is equal to RT2 by P2. Substituting those values R, T2 and P2, which is 100 kilopascals, I will get V2 as 1.27 meter cube per kg. So now from the continuity equation we know that m dot is equal to A1 V1 by V1 is equal to A2 V2 by V2. So A1 is the area at inlet, A2 is the area at the outlet, V1 V2 are the velocities, capital V1 and capital V2 at inlet and outlet, and V1 small V2 are the specific volumes at inlet and outlet. So substituting those values, A1 V1 by V1 and is equal to A2 V2 by V2. I have got all the values except A2. So from solving I will get the A2 is equal to 45 centimeter square. So the option 4 D is the correct answer. So next question, second question, a perfect gas expands from an initial volume of 4 meter cube in an isothermal process. The initial and final pressures of the gas are 4 bar and 1 bar respectively. The work of interaction of gas with the surroundings is equal to. So here 4 options are given. Which is correct? Let us see. So from work done in isothermal process, where T is equal to constant is given by W1 is equal to PdV. We know that in the isothermal process P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. So because PV is equal to constant, so P1 by P2 is equal to V2 by V1, or P2 by P1 is equal to V1 by V2. So P is equal to C by V writing. So substituting there integral PdV 1 to 2, C by V dV integral 1 to 2. So W1 is equal to C ln V2 by V1, but C is equal to, we know that P1 V1 is equal to, which is equal to P2 V2. So substituting for C, P1 V1 ln natural logarithm of V2 by V1, but which is equal to P1 by P2. So the final work done will be equal to P1 V1 ln P1 by P2. So P1 by P2 ratio is already given to us, which is equal to 4 by 1, that is equal to 4. So W12 comes out to be 4 into 400 into log 4 natural logarithm of 4, that comes out to be 2218 kilojoules. So from which we can say that C is the correct answer. Now third question says that the source temperature for a Carnot engine is 572 degrees centigrade and its temperature is 172 degrees centigrade. If the source is replaced with another source of 672 degrees centigrade, the gain in efficiency of the engine he is asking. So 4 options are given: 12.74, 15.4, 13.46 and 11.74. So the 2 engines are given for which the source temperature, sink temperature is given. In the first case it is 572 In the second case it is 672 degrees centigrade. So converting the temperature into Kelvin, I will get T1 is equal to 845, T2 is equal to 445 and T3 is equal to 945 Kelvin. So engine efficiency, first engine efficiency is equal to T1 minus T2 by T1 in Kelvin. So second engine efficiency is equal to T3 minus T2 by T3. Substituting for the values of T1, T2 and T3, I will get engine 1 efficiency is equal to 0.47, that is 47%, and engine 2 efficiency is equal to 0.529 or 53% approximately. So what is the percentage increase? It is equal to NE2 minus NE1 by NE1 into 100. So 53% minus 47 by 47 into 100, that comes out to be 12.57%. But the nearest answer is here it is given as 12.74. So take the option which is A as the correct answer. So put A as the correct answer. The fourth question says that in the design cycle he is asking the effect of decreasing the compression ratio and increasing the cutoff ratio. So they have the effect of. So from the equation which is shown, I have shown there. So it is showing that the efficiency of design cycle is equal to 1 minus 1 by r to the power of gamma minus 1 into rc to the power of gamma minus 1 by gamma into rc minus 1. Here r is the compression ratio, rc is the cutoff ratio, and gamma is the ratio of the specific heat Cp by Cv. So now we can observe that by decreasing the compression ratio and increasing the cutoff ratio, for in both cases what will happen, the quantity increases, the subtracted quantity increases, and hence the net efficiency decreases. So for in both cases, that is by decreasing the compression ratio and increasing the cutoff ratio, in both cases there is a decrease in the thermal efficiency. So the option D is the correct answer. So let us come to the fifth question. So it is he is asking what are the units of degree of superheat and what is called it is dryness fraction. So degree of superheat is the superheated temperature minus saturation temperature, which is nothing but the in degree centigrade, and dryness fraction is defined as the mass of steam by mass of steam plus mass of water. So mass of steam, because both are ratios, so it does not have any units. So what is the correct answer here? So because x is a ratio, it does not have any units. So we can easily make out that the option 2 B is the correct answer, that is degree centigrade and no units is the correct answer. So dear friends, dear students, so please, if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe, because we are going to discuss many things about this particular examination, APPSC mechanical engineering municipal AE examination, which is going to come shortly, and it is going to be conducted before December, it seems. There are good number of vacancies. It is I heard from the internet that there is going to be around 200 to 300 vacancies, and mechanical engineering candidates are equally eligible. So we are going to discuss many things about this examination. So as a promise, I am going to we are going to discuss 150 questions along with the solutions. We will go by section. If you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe. You are going to be benefited a lot. And once again, I am requesting you not to attempt these questions unless you have done the question, unless you have done the syllabus section by section thoroughly and revised it. Okay, if you are liking, definitely I hope you are going to like my videos. If you are liking, so please share along with your friends, comment, like, share, and also press the bell icon over there, so that you will get the notification of my next video immediately to you, so that you need not any material, you need not miss any material, you need not miss any video and lecture and the knowledge of that, so that you can do all these things. Okay, wish you all the best. And now we will continue in our discussion. So the question 6. So what is he is saying that a Carnot heat pump is used for heating a room at 20 degrees centigrade. It exchanges heat with the water canal with water at 10 degrees centigrade. So he is asking the COP. So how to find out the COP? So COP for the engine I have shown there. Okay, the difference between engine and heat pump I have given. So in the engine we will get the work as the output, whereas in case of heat pump you have to give the work as the input. So T1, T2 are the temperatures of source and sink respectively. So converting as usual, converting the temperatures into Kelvin, 20 degrees 293 Kelvin and 10 degrees 283 Kelvin. So, what is the Carnot heat pump's COP? It is T1 by T1 minus T2, that is the highest temperature by change in temperature. Substituting those values, 293 by 293 minus 283, that is 293 by 10, that is 29.3. So, to make you confused, he has given one more option, 23.9. So, if you overlook it, so there is a possibility that you are going to put the A as the correct answer, but which is the wrong answer. So, the correct option which is D is the correct answer here. So, the seventh question, a Carnot refrigerator is operating between two temperatures. If a Carnot heat engine operates between the same temperatures and if the COP of the refrigerator is 5, then the COP of heat engine. So, he has given 4 options, 3 options are going to confuse you only. If you know the very fundamental that COP of heat pump is equal to COP of refrigerator plus 1. So, we know that the COP of the refrigerator is given to be 1. So, definitely COP of the heat pump should be 6. So, the A is the correct option, okay, correct answer, and other 3 options are given to only just to keep you in trouble or confusion. So, do not confuse. So, be firm. So, answer A is the correct answer. So, 8th question, for pure substance like water, steam undergoing a phase change at constant temperature and pressure. So, dash remains constant and it is accompanied by changes in y and z, x, y, z. The blanks x, y, z respectively are. So, here at phase change the pressure is constant. When the pressure is constant, Gibbs function is going to be constant. When the volume is constant, Helmholtz function is going to be constant. Helmholtz function is given to only confuse you. The Gibbs function remains constant at constant pressure. So, but phase change is accompanied by change in entropy because there is a gain in heat increases and change in volume because there is a transformation from liquid to vapor. If it is from vapor to liquid, it will be definitely there is a decrease in volume. So, he is saying, so because there is a from when the phase changes from liquid to vapor, there is a both increase in volume and also increase in entropy. But if it is otherwise, that is vapor to liquid, it will be reverse. But here the option seems to be 4th D option is the correct answer, that is Gibbs function, entropy and volume. So, next question is a Bell-Coleman cycle. I have shown you Bell-Coleman cycle on the PV diagram and PS diagram. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 are the processes. 1, 2 is the reversible adiabatic process, 2, 3 is the constant pressure process, 3, 4 is the reversible adiabatic expansion, and P is equal to constant, 4, 1 is the heat gain, that is nothing but the refrigeration, heat gain by the refrigerant, which is nothing but it is going to cool the space, that is the refrigeration process. Okay. So, 1, 2 reversible adiabatic compression, 2, 3 heat rejection, 3, 4 expansion reversible adiabatic, 4, 1 actual cooling process. So, I have shown the PS diagram also where 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4 and 4, 1 are given, 1, 2 vertical, 2, 3 horizontal, 3, 4 vertical, 4, 1 again horizontal. So, Bell-Coleman cycle, it has 4 processes as I told you, 1, 2 S is equal to constant, 2, 3 P is equal to constant, 3, 4 S is equal to constant, 4, 1 P is equal to constant. It is using the aircraft refrigeration, using air as the working fluid. So, Brayton cycle is just reverse. So, what is happening actually, it is starting from compression, heating, expansion and cooling. So, compared to this, the reversible Brayton cycle is the Bell-Coleman cycle, in which the process is starting from compression, cooling, expansion and heating of the refrigerant. So, that means cooling of the room, which is the 4-1 process. So, in the below diagram I have shown the PV diagram and also PS diagram also, right. So, the correct option is reverse Brayton cycle with 4 processes. Other 5 processes are given to only make you in lot of make you think, okay, in the different direction. So, only to just confuse you. So, do not get confused, it is only having only 4 processes only, okay. So, the correct option is option A. So, 10th, let us come to the 10th question. He is saying that bomb calorimeter and Junkers calorimeter. So, he has given 4 options over there. Both calorimeters are used for finding out the calorific heating value of the calorific value or heating value, both are same, they are the fuels, but Junker calorimeter is not naturally it is used for gases, whereas bomb calorimeter is used for the liquid fuels. So, the other options are only to make you in trouble or maybe to confuse you between specific heat and calorific value, okay. So, there is no need for any confusion over there. So, you can easily select the 4th option as the correct answer. Next one is 11th question. In the 11th question again he is saying that among the following IC engine fuels properties that is not recommended. So, low toxicity. So, definitely any IC engine fuel should have low toxicity. It should not okay, form vapors and contaminate the atmosphere. Low deposition forming tendency. If it is having high deposition forming tendency, some soot will be forming on the pipes, etc. So, that is not required. High thermal stability. It should be very thermal, highly thermal stable at high temperatures. Okay, not to dissociate, and only which is option which is wrong is seem to be low energy density. So, definitely, so it should be having AC engine fuel should be having high energy density, so that it will give more heat when burning. That is what is our requirement for high power generation. Okay. So, the 12th question. In the 12th question, cylinder heads in IC engines and pistons of aircraft engines are made of. So, here the 3 alloys are given of aluminum and cast iron is ruled out, cast iron is not used. Here the main consideration in the pistons of aircraft engines and IC engines is the weight. So, when they are made of aluminum, so the weight will be less, but the confusion arises among the 3 options which are all the alloys of aluminum, that is magnesium, Y alloy and duralumin. So, the correct option is magnesium. So, choose the A as the correct answer. Next question, the compression stroke in case of an IC engine, spark ignition engine on valve timing diagram works out to be approximately. So, I have given here here I have shown I have drawn actual the valve timing diagram, VT diagram for an SI engine. So, I have shown you there the crank angle, it is called crank angle versus stroke diagram. The crank angle is given in theta degree as degrees. So, IVC is the inlet valve closes and exhaust valve closes. In the compression stroke both the valves are closed. So, approximately 55 plus 10. So, the half of the circle is 180 degrees. So, every stroke actually ideally should constitute 180 degrees, but it is not going to be like that actually in practice, because of the inertia of the valves like what you call okay, so 2 valves, inlet valve and exhaust valve. So, the compression stroke actually, so it is starting 55 degrees after the BDC and it is closing, exhaust valve is closing, inlet valve is closing after 55 degrees after BDC and exhaust valve closing before 10 degrees of the TDC. So, if you subtract that 65 degrees from 180 degrees, I am going to get 115 degrees. So, 115 degrees is the correct answer. So, choose the answer D as the correct option. So, D is the correct answer. Okay, boys. So, in the direct air cooling of IC engines, the fins are. So, here in the direct or air cooling of IC engines of a current of air is made to flow past the outside of the cylinder barrel. Okay, outer surface area of which has been considerably increased by providing cooling fins. Actually, so the fins are used for increasing the surface area over which there is heat transfer. So, basic reason for using fins is that only to increase the area of heat transfer, but there are no cooling pipes or radiators provided in case of air or direct cooling of the IC engines. Okay. So, and this minimizes the maintenance problems. So, this is mainly used in motor cycles, small cars, aeroplanes and combat tanks. So, this type of direct or air cooling is used in the applications which I have just mentioned. So, answer A is the correct answer. Okay, here he is confusing you between fins are used, radiator is not used, fins and radiator both are used, fins and radiator both are not used, fins are not used and radiator is used. Okay. So, you can, if you know the subject, if you have read it thoroughly the syllabus, each and every chapter and each and every item by item for all the sections of the syllabus, you can easily locate the correct answer. So, here what is the correct answer? The answer A is the correct answer. Next comes the 15th question. The temperature of air at inlet to two-stage compression is 290 degrees Kelvin. It is cooled to 290 degrees Kelvin after the first stage compression. If the ratio of delivery and inlet pressure is 5, the ratio of air pressure at the end of first stage and inlet pressure is equal to. So, gamma is equal to 1.4 is given for air. So, here he is giving the indirect hint that it is the perfect cooling. That means, the inlet intake temperature after first stage compression, the air is cooled to the intake temperature which is 290 degrees Kelvin. That is, he is saying to us that it is a perfect intercooling process. In the perfect intercooling process, you know that P3 by P2 is equal to P2 by P1. For that means the ratio of compression for each stage is equal to constant, which is equal to K. So, final stage and initial pressure ratio is given P3 by P1. I can write P3 by P2 into P2 by P1, which is equal to K into K, that is K square. So, K square is equal to P3 by P1, which is given as 5. So, K is equal to P2 by P1 is equal to P3 by P2 is equal to root 5, under root of 5. So, P2 by P1, that is the ratio of the first stage compression pressure and the inlet pressure is equal to root 5, which is going to be 2.24. So, the answer is option A is correct answer. So, next the volumetric efficiency, the next question 16th question says that at the fixed clearance ratio and pressure ratio, volumetric efficiency of the two stage compressor. Now, you have to decide. So, the volumetric ratio of a compressor is given by P1 TA by PA T1 into 1 plus C minus C into P2 by P1 whole to the power of 1 by N. P1 TA and PA are the temperatures of air and P1 T1 are the suction temperature and pressure of the air. C is the clearance ratio and P2 by P1 is the pressure ratio. N is the index of expansion. So, here you can see that all other parameters are constant like P1 TA, PA T1, C and P2 by P1. So, we can easily make out that in the expression all other parameters are constant except the polytropic index N. So, if N is decreased, 1 by N increases. So, P2 by P1 is greater than 1. So, hence the minus term increases. So, hence there is a decrease in the efficiency, volumetric efficiency. So, what is the correct answer? It is the option B is the correct answer. Next question is 17th question. 17th question says that the percentage change in the efficiency of a Brayton cycle. So, please refer to the questions once again. Gas turbine plant, when the working pressure ratio of the plant is changed from 4 to 5 is equal to, so okay, for air is equal to 1, gamma is equal to 1.4, which is Cp by Cv ratio. So, I have shown you the Brayton cycle over there. I have given you the PV diagram and also TS diagram also 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 compression, heat addition, expansion and rejection, okay, heat rejection. So, I have mentioned those process S is equal to C, P is equal to C, S is equal to C and P is equal to C. I have clearly shown on the TS diagram also for various process 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4 and 4, 1. So, what is the Brayton cycle efficiency? It is 1 minus R 1 by Rp to the power of gamma minus 1 by gamma. What is gamma? Gamma is already given 1.4. So, pressure ratio is given to be 4 in one case, first case, and 5 in second case. Substitute that Rp value for two Brayton cycles, okay, gas turbine. So, substitute them and Cp is you already know that it is 1.4. So, substituting that Cp by Cv is equal to 1.4. Substituting that N Brayton 1, first Brayton cycle is equal to 1 minus 1 by 4 to the power of 1.4 minus 1 by 1.4, that is 1 minus 1 by 4 to the power of 0.4 by 1.4. So, calculating that I will get it is equal to 32.7 percentage. Similarly, so Brayton cycle, second Brayton cycle efficiency is equal to 1 minus 1 by 5 whole to the power of 1.4 minus 1 by 1.4. So, substituting that I will get the efficiency is equal to 36.8 percentage. So, now what is the change in efficiency, whether it is increase or decrease? So, definitely there is an increase in efficiency because of the increase in the pressure ratio. So, that is going to be given by NB2 minus NB1 by NB1 into 100. Substituting the values 36.8 minus 32.7 by 32.7, it is going to be 0.1253 into 100, that is 12.53%. So, the nearest answer in the options is 12.85. So, take the answer A as the correct answer. Okay. So, now 18th question. In the 18th question, he has given it is discussing the centrifugal compressor. In the centrifugal compressor, P1 is given, P2 is given, that is the pressure at the inlet and pressure at the end of the first stage. So, P1, P2 are given, P2 is equal to 9 bar, P1 is equal to 1.5 bar. So, T2 by T1 is equal to P2 by P1 whole to the power gamma minus 1 by gamma. So, that gives T2 is equal to T1 into P2 by P1 whole to the power gamma minus 1 by gamma. So, substituting that T1 is equal to I have changed into Kelvin. So, that comes out to be 298 Kelvin, 25 plus 273. Substituting that I will get T2 298 into 9 by 1.5 whole to the power of 0.4 by 1.4, that comes out to be 497.2 Kelvin. So m dot is equal to mass flow rate you have to calculate by dividing with 60 because it is given in per minute. So per second it comes out to be 30 by 60, that is 0.5 kg per second. So power requirements are given by P is equal to m dot into Cp into T2 minus T1. Substituting that 0.5 into 1.005 into, so that the difference in temperature, which is nothing but 497.2 minus 298. So it comes out to be around approximately 100 kilowatts. So answer is C. 19th question. In the 19th question, the purpose of bending of its tubes in a Stirling boiler. In Stirling boiler, the tubes between the top and bottom drums are bent. So they get straightened, try to get straightened. The already bent tubes avoid further bending and present from the development of thermal stresses. So under the heat in the boiler. So naturally in the boiler there is going to be a lot of heat because we are going to burn the fuel actually. So if they are not bent actually, so they will try to bend and thermal stresses will be induced. So because already they are bent, they will try to straighten a little bit. So in order to avoid the induction of the thermal stresses, the tubes between the upper and lower drum are going to be bent in case of a Stirling boiler. So the option A is the correct answer. So come to the 20th question. So in the 20th question, it is again a nozzle problem. In the nozzle problem, so please go through the problem once again. If you are in doubt, so please go through my earlier video and see that. Whenever you get the doubt, so please go through that and get the clarity on that. Again it is a nozzle problem. For nozzle problem, H1 plus V1 square by 2000 is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2000. H is in kilojoules per kg, Kelvin, kilojoules per kg. So you have to take 2000. So I have shown a nozzle over there, H1 V1, H2 V2 are the enthalpies and velocities at inlet and outlet. So velocity in meter per second. So substituting that, H1 is given 3000, V1 is equal to 50 and H2 is equal to 2500, V2 is equal to, we don't know, so calculate V2. So V2 is coming around 1000 meters per second. The ratio comes out to be V1 by V2, that is 50 by 1000, that is V1 by V2 is equal to 1 by 20. So V1 is equal to 1 by 20th of V2. So he is asking the fraction. So fraction comes out to be 1 by 20. So what is the correct answer? The correct answer is the option B. So next comes the 21st question. In this question, what is asking? He is asking the Parsons reaction turbine. For Parsons reaction turbine, the maximum efficiency is given by N maximum is equal to 2 cos square alpha by 1 plus cos square alpha. Alpha is equal to 20, which is already given, which is nothing but the outlet angle of outlet angle of the blade or the nozzle inlet angle or steam inlet angle. So substituting that alpha is equal to 20 degrees, I will get the maximum efficiency for the Parsons reaction turbine is equal to 2 cos square 20 by 1 plus cos square 20. So that comes up to 0.937 into 100, that is equal to 94%. So it is less than 100% by 100 minus 94, that is 6%. So normally ideal case is 100%, but it is 94%, hence it is 6% less than the ideal 100%. So the answer, correct answer is the option C. Next comes 22nd question. The critical pressure ratio for a steam with a quality drainage fraction of 0.9, x is equal to 0.9. So here there is a lot of difference between superheated steam, dry saturated steam and wet steam. So for wet steam, for any steam with any wet steam or with some dryness fraction, maybe it is less than always 1. So the index of expansion is given by 1.035 plus 0.1 into x, where x is the dryness fraction. Dryness fraction is given to be 0.9, and substitute that I will get the index of expansion, which is comes out to be 1.125. The critical pressure ratio is given by P2 by P1 is equal to 2 by n plus 1 whole to the power of n by n minus 1. Substituting n is equal to 1.125 for x is equal to 0.9, I will get P2 by P1 is equal to 2 by 1 by 1.125 plus 1 whole to the power of 1.125 by 1.125 minus 1. So that comes out to be, after calculation, I hope you are very good at calculating or using the calculators. If you are not in good in using the calculator, so please practice with using the calculator. Okay, be prepared for online exam also or maybe on computer exam if it is conducted, but I don't think it will be conducted online this time. So if it is online, you should be ready to use the virtual calculator. So do some practice on virtual calculators. If otherwise, you can use your calculator, because hard problems cannot be calculated without calculator. So if at all calculators are not, if calculators are not allowed, the fitting data will be given. So don't worry about the using the calculator, but definitely you should have sufficient practice of the using of calculators. So next, so answer C is the, so P2 by P1 comes out to be in this question, 21st question, sorry 22nd question. So it comes out to be P2 by P1 is equal to 0.58. So option C is the correct answer. Answer C is the correct answer. So now question 23rd, in pressure compounded impulse turbine, what is the stage? Stage here means actually in pressure compounded impulse turbine, set of nozzles and moving blades are continuously arranged and hence constitute a stage. In nozzles pressure drops and velocity increases, while in moving blades pressure does not change but the velocity of the steam drops off. Example, so example for this pressure compounded impulse turbines are Rato turbine and Joule turbine. So and velocity compounded turbine, one example is Curtis turbine. Okay, so please try to differentiate between the velocity compounded turbine and pressure compounded turbine and pressure velocity compounded turbines. In this case, the correct answer is the set of fixed and the set of what you call fixed and moving blades. Okay, set of nozzles and moving blades. So it is I think answer A is correct answer, but by mistake I have given it answer C is the correct answer. So in the pressure component impulse turbine, set of nozzles and moving blades are continuously arranged and hence constitutes the stage. So the correct answer is set of nozzles and moving blades. So I have given C as the correct answer. So please make a small change, small correction. So answer A is the correct answer, that is set of nozzles and moving blades is the correct answer. Okay, so come to the 24th question. So the type of governing suitable for high pressure multi-stage impulse turbine. So what is this the governing? Governing actually, in any turbine the load changes accordingly according to the consumption. Say for example, electricity is generated. Okay, sometimes during the night times the load may increase, during the morning times the load may decrease. So like that load varied actually varies. So in order to control the speed of the turbine according to the load on the turbine, that is the power requirements or electricity requirements, generation requirements. So this governing is resorted to. There are 4 types of governing, actually 3 types of main important governings, governing of steam turbines: throttle governing, bypass governing and nozzle control governing. Okay, so here in the for multi-stage high pressure turbines, the appropriate method of governing is bypass governing. Okay, so what happens occasionally, the turbine is overloaded for short duration. During such operation, bypass valves are opened and fresh steam is introduced into the later stages. So he has clearly used the words later stages, that means multi-stage turbine. So in the multi-stage impulse turbine, so definitely the type of governing resorted to is the bypass governing of the turbines. So hence the correct answer is B. So throttle governing is used for small steam turbines, while nozzle governing is used in the first stage, whereas the subsequent stages remain unaffected. So the option C and A and D are ruled out. So what is the correct answer here? Here the correct answer is bypass governing, that is option B. Answer B is the correct answer. Let us come to the last question of this particular paper or your thermal engineering, thermodynamics and heat engines paper. So this is in this ideal Rankine cycle. The question is about Rankine cycle. I have clearly shown the Rankine cycle over there on the TS diagram. 4-1 is the pump, 1-2 is the boiler, 2-3 is the turbine and 3-4 is the condenser. So B boiler, T turbine, C condenser, okay, P is the pump. So here 1-2 is the heat addition process. So it is given enthalpy at outlet of pump, which is nothing but the inlet to the boiler. So that is given as the 200 kilojoules per kg. Similarly, H2 enthalpy at the inlet of the turbine, that is outlet from the boiler, that is given as 3200 kilojoules per kg. So S1 and S2 also given. So S1 is the entropy of steam at inlet to the boiler. So it is actually they are reversed actually in the question, but so read it correctly. So it is 0.1615 kilojoules per kg Kelvin, and S2 is the entropy of steam at inlet to the turbine or outlet of the boiler, that is given as 7.15 kilojoules per kg Kelvin. They are reversed actually in the question. So just to make a small correction over there for S1 and S2. So S1 is equal to S4 and S2 is equal to S3, because 1-4 and 2-3 are the reversible adiabatic expansion and compression processes. Okay. Okay, 2 3 is the compression expansion process, and 4 1 is the compression process, which is in pump, and 2 3 is in turbine. So as 1 4 and 2 3 are the isentropic process, so from second law of thermodynamics we know that dq is by t is equal to ds. From second law of thermodynamics we know that, okay, but dq is equal to dh from steady flow energy equation in case of a boiler, okay, because all other kinetic energy, next then potential energy and all other, okay, work and, okay, basically work is not there in the boiler. So only heat is the only quantity which is depending upon the enthalpy. So dq is equal to dh in case of boiler from steady flow energy equation. So he is using the both the concepts, that is, one is the second law of thermodynamics and second one is the steady flow energy equation. Okay, so now so substituting for dq is equal to dh by t is equal to ds, and t is equal to dh by ds. So I know dh is equal to h2 minus h1, substitute them, 3200 minus 200, that is 3000 kilojoules per kg, and ds is equal to h2 minus h1, that is 7.15 minus 0.615, that is 6.535 kilojoules per kg Kelvin. So T is equal to temperature in Kelvin is equal to dh by ds, that is 3000 by 6.525. So cancelling all those units I will get in Kelvin. So here you have to be very very careful, because the answers are in centigrade and Kelvin also. First two answers are in centigrade and last two answers are in Kelvin. So you are getting the answer in Kelvin, 459 Kelvin, 459 Kelvin. Okay, but the answer is 459 degrees centigrade. If you don't see properly correctly, so there is a chance that you will keep A as a correct answer. So what you have to do? So 459 Kelvin you got it. So subtract 273 degrees, that comes out to be 186. Okay, 459 minus 273, that is 186 centigrade. Okay, so 186 Kelvin is wrong answer. To confuse you, he has given 168 Kelvin. Okay, if you are okay, making you assuming that you may be, okay, little if you are careless, you are going to put instead of 186 Kelvin 168 Kelvin also, right? So you have to be careful, very very careful, okay, while choosing the options. Okay, you have to be concentrating, and also if for example in this bit, okay, so you are after you get the answer in Kelvin, you have to convert into degree centigrade. So here the correct answer from among all the four options is the 186 degrees centigrade, that is option B is the correct answer. Okay boys, so we have completed the discussion of the 25 questions of your thermodynamics and heat engines, and wish you all the best. If you have not subscribed, once again I am asking you to please subscribe my channel, and like, comment, share and subscribe. Okay, wish you all the best, good luck. So we will meet in the next video with our next important section of the syllabus, that is your manufacturing technology. Okay boys, see you.